We are back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us, taking your phone calls, messages on Facebook as we talk with the Vice Mayor here in Metro Davidson County. That would be Jim Shulman. We've got a few folks out here that just aren't convinced. J.E. says, you know, you're the Vice Mayor, you have no options. Of course you have options, this person says. Tell people budgets need to be cut and folks just need to suck it up. And that local government has been poorly managed. And I think we would all agree that this person has a point on that. I mean, Mayor Cooper inherited a real pickle. And you wonder, with such a prosperous city like Nashville, how we ever got to this point, even before the tornadoes and the pandemic hit. You know, some financial mismanagement, I think, was going on here. And it's made it much worse in a situation that was going to be bad anyway.
Well, whenever you go back and look at your books and you're spending more than you're pulling in, just, I mean, look at a family budget. You can't do that. And we've been doing that for years, and that's everybody's responsibility, including mine. I was on the council. We didn't see it. You know, one of the problems is based upon the fact that everybody tries to be careful with how everything works, is that you don't end up with a lot of staff. So you don't have so many eyes watching the budget. We're all watching it now, but I'm talking about when it starts moving through and then watching the numbers overall. And we have to do a better job, but when you go back after, you know, now when you look back over the 10 years, it's sort of like, how in the world were we spending more money than we were pulling in? And how did we get in that mess? And then if we're in that mess, every so often you do the reassessments. Maybe you move up the tax rate a little bit to cover, to make sure you've got it. And people say, well, don't even move it up to cover, you shouldn't be spending. Well, some things do increase with expenditures over time, like the school system. And you want to make sure you can properly pay your employees, including the police and firefighters. So you're weighing all these different things. There's not a lot of, I mean, as much as the budget, there's a lot of stuff in it, there's not a lot of moving pieces that you can move around without really doing some serious harm. Options, Nick, I'll tell you, I mean, we've been looking at this for the last 3 years now. People keep going like, okay, we're going to go out and find a solution to this thing, and they go somewhere and they go, oh, we can't do that, and they come back. And then they go down another rabbit hole, they can't find a solution that way. If there was some solution, and people can say, oh, it's just local government mismanaging, there's, you know, maybe there's some of that, but I don't think there's a lot of that. Things have been pretty tight over the years, and we've been looking for a way out of this thing for the last 2 years, and now all of a sudden this shows up.
Yeah, that's my kind of take on it. And there's a lot of people that are going to be distrustful anyway and not believe what you're saying in terms of what is available here. But my take on this is that, look, a tax increase for any politician, and yes, sometimes under certain circumstances they're necessary, but a tax increase, you know this, Jim, to be advocated by any politician is political suicide. It just is. I mean, it's the last thing. So if you or the mayor or someone else in our council came up with some solution where there could be some cuts that maybe wouldn't come back and bite in another way and not destroy some valuable service like the police or fire, you would be a darn hero. I mean, I'm trying to think, you know, I just don't buy that there's some conspiracy theory like we just want to taxes and we're going to protect this other stuff. I mean, you're going to protect fire and police, but if anyone could come up with something, cuts that might cause some layoffs but not cut the essential services, gosh, if I was in the council, that's where I'd go, because I would be the darn hero avoiding a property tax.
Well, so last year, election year, we had people propose property tax increases. And so Nick is right. I mean, you think that we really want to do this? Is this how we want to, you know, spend our time, is throwing out a property tax increase to people? It was important 2 years ago. It was on the table 2 years ago. Last year, an election year, unheard of in political worlds for politicians or basically your government official to propose a property tax increase in an election year. And because of what was going on, it was proposed and it almost passed, missed by one vote. And those people were reelected. Because I think at some point people have to step back and go, they're just not doing this because they're lazy and you know, there's money all sitting around. I don't think anybody really likes doing this. I know I certainly don't. I mean, this is not something that we really just want to do because it's just the easy thing to do. Right now, you got three choices. You can either do it this way, or you can, and you'll see a substitute come in that proposes a lower property tax increase, and people going, yay. And it's like, but we're going to cut a bunch of basic services out of metro government. People go, you can't do that. It's like, well, you can't do both. The last option is whether the federal government comes in with some either changes the way they're doing these financial incentives, or they come in and go, you know what, the country's in serious trouble and nobody wants to pay additional property taxes or deal with it, and they come in with some type of influx of capital. So we're watching all that, but you know, I think, I mean, you'd have to talk to the mayor himself, but when they looked at that budget, he could either lay off a bunch of people and or hold it together and make sure we could continue our basic core services. Nobody wants to be, I don't think we want anybody let go. And people are out there, Nick, I know, saying, well, I got furloughed or I got laid off. It's like, I know, but we don't want to add to the problem. I mean, I hate the fact that they got laid off. I want them to come back to work. I want this thing to start back and people to be back to work. I don't want to put more people out of work. We're trying to get this thing solved and move forward. So, anyway.
Right. Interesting conversation on Facebook just with masks, and some people saying, well, you know, a lot of these masks we have, you know, don't protect us from it. And Fred here makes the good point. The point about wearing masks like this, as opposed to the N95 masks, can filter out and maybe protect you from it coming in. These masks are here for you to wear, not to protect you. Hopefully you're well anyway. But so when you sneeze into it, it doesn't send all those little, you know, moisture particles out into the air for someone else to breathe. It contains it. So when you wear a mask, it's not to protect you, it's to protect everyone else. So when someone else is wearing a mask, that is to protect you from them. Try to understand that. I think this mask could provide modest protection if someone sneezes over there to stop some of the particles, but they could still get through. These masks are to protect others from you. Get that through your head. All right, we're going to take another phone call. Next up is, I believe, John. Let's see, wait, we got Ricky first. Ricky, go ahead, Ricky.
Yeah, I got a couple of questions.
Yeah.
The M mask, you know, they're so tight on your face they sometimes cause sores. And my next question, what about the lottery? Everybody's needing money for the state and stuff to pay everything. Why not just siphon the interest off of that to put it where you need it for a short time?
So I love Ricky's first question, because I've noticed it too. It's like at some point I think my ears are going to come off, because sometimes they get too tight and it feels like, you know, it starts.
Well, like, the cloth ones, you know, you wash them and they shrink a little bit and you got to stretch them out, or you've got these paper ones. I still have the problem with my glasses fogging up, and so when someone told me if you put a little strip of tape across the bridge of your nose, or maybe one of those breathe rights, that's supposed to help.
I wonder about that too, because if you wear a mask and then you put glasses on and all of a sudden I can't see, like, because it's like it's all foggy on my glasses. So that's so we're learning stuff. Ricky, maybe you can come up with something to make to deal with that. Okay, just an idea. The lottery is controlled by state law. And by the Constitution of the state, and what happens with the proceeds. So that money is distributed based upon how much money is pulled in, goes to higher education, and then if there's leftovers, it can go to pre-K, but it's all set. So appreciate, again, talking about different options. You know, we're looking at all these different things, and you just can't do it. And then the next question would be, well, once you go change the state law, it's like, well, you got a lot of other cities and counties over there that may not want to change it, or it may be difficult to get that law changed. So it took a long time to get the lottery back anyway. I will notice, Nick, that when I drive by, when I drive home, you see the lottery sign,
right?
And I've noticed the Powerball is lower than it usually is.
Yeah, not as many people playing the lottery, but the jackpot's still up there. It's up there. I noticed it too. I drive past that billboard every morning when I come in, and I see, and it's like several $1 million. You know, some people say I don't play it until it's $100 million. Like, it's not worth it if you were to win $50 million. But people are still playing the lottery. But again, great point that money, and it's been brought up before, is locked and loaded into the state constitution, and it's going toward education. It cannot be divvied up elsewhere without going in and making some major changes.
Well, I think when I drove home yesterday, I think it was $86 million for the Powerball. And maybe 220 for the Mega Millions.
Yes, that's up there.
So 220, 86. Even if you played both and won, That wouldn't be enough to handle the shortfall in the city.
Point taken. 300 million right there. Wow. All right, let's go. Yeah, the city should buy a ticket. Let's go to John. John, good morning. Do you have a question, John?
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
This is John.
Hi.
I was wondering, is there a legal and a moral way of thinking about raising property taxes in Nashville when other cities in the country, I don't think they're raising any of their property tax, and I'm wondering why, being as devastated as Nashville has been with tornadoes and the pandemic, and the whole middle class is shattered as far as trying to get jobs, and then you have no stimulus checks coming through, and you have no unemployment coming through. So what's everybody living on, and how soon is all this going to work out?
Okay. Well, he hits on all the points there on why this is so hard for folks. And I don't know, Jim, if we looked yet, we know there's a lot of other cities. And Nashville is particularly hit hard because of our draw and the tourist industry here. But, I mean, how do we compare in terms of property tax increases with comparable cities right now, the proposals?
Now, so some cities, I'll tell you, Nick, don't have the ability to do property tax increases.
Okay.
They get their monies different ways. So there was a very interesting article a while back that we may have talked about. Columbus, Ohio, their city government survives off of an income tax that I think Ohio has. We don't have that here. So they don't have the ability. They're going to be hurting because their source of revenue is tied to people's incomes, and as John noted, people's incomes may be down. We have the ability, because such a huge chunk of our revenues coming in comes from the property tax. That's how we can get back. So I liked his question from the standpoint of legal, moral. We have a responsibility to balance the budget. We've got to figure out how to do that. But the moral question, I think that's what's bothering people. Now, again, nobody wants to pay additional property taxes. I get that, but we do want a city that's functioning. And I think we have both a legal and now basically, I mean, as an elected official, kind of a moral responsibility to make sure the city is functioning correctly. How soon can we get through this? A lot of it depends on how we act. I mean, if people will do what they're supposed to, wear masks, social distancing, and I think on the news this morning they had some more promising news about a vaccine. Basically, it feels like we are holding on. We are doing what we're supposed to, taking those steps to protect everybody until that vaccine is tested, and then it's mass distributed and everybody gets it, and then everybody can take a deep breath and come back out. The tax increase, it has to be looked at next year anyway, but we have a responsibility to make sure the budget is balanced and the city functions like it's supposed to.
Let's take a break on that note. When we come back, more phone calls for you. John, Joe, Tom, Tony, and others, as well as comments on Facebook. We'll get to you more in our final segment with Jim Shulman right after this. Stay with us.